the person who'd been here before had kept the house open and had kept it running as a wedding chapel. There was no furniture in the house. It was kept sleek and bare. The thought being, well, a bride can't imagine having her wedding here, which is, a major source of revenue, if there's all these, empire secretaries and all this nonsense in the way. But the foundation did restore the house for it to be a wedding chapel. I think it's fine for us to have events here. This house was built for entertaining. This was their townhome. And I honestly believe that a house like this, which is built for large-scale entertaining, and when it's managed properly, is a good thing for the house. It brings in the revenue, yes, but it also brings in people who would never see it otherwise. There's a lot of people, house museums, that's not my thing. Also, that's not really my thing. All it takes is for them to come inside, and then it is their thing. And a lot of more people, I think, should get opened up to this by going to an event like a wedding or a conference or something that we might host. So when I came in, the foundation was low on funds, things were not looking good, and a lot of it was just management, and then of course the fact that it honestly wasn't a house museum. It was a house you could walk around in, there were no tours given, and it was all aimed towards weddings. The way I see it is, this is Alabama's landmark Italianate house, designed by an amazing 19th century architect duo, Samuel Sloan and John Stewart, or an architect and an engineer. And their brainstorm, their brainchild, and Senator Jemison's dream child, this house, is a monument to the state's ingenuity and therefore should be preserved as the museum showing that part of the 19th century. So during the week, we are a 19th century house museum, and during the weekend, we get to share it with the public by having these events. Tuscaloosa Preservation is at an interesting place. We have lost a lot. This house is one of the last vestiges of an extremely wealthy antebellum city that had, Greensboro Avenue was called Millionaire's Row. Every block was a different mansion class townhouse, and they had ribbon cuttings when they tore them down. We were gonna out with the old, Tuscaloosa is going to be a modern city. It's going to be so much better. We don't want to be held back by these old vestiges of the past. We're not that South. We're not that place anymore. Well, you shouldn't delete your history. And these houses stand for a whole lot more than slavery and so forth. But if this house had block after block of antebellum mansions now, that's one of the things it would be known for. We have the university, and the university is all universities are now these epic powerhouses and giant corporations, and they've done a decent job with some of their landmark properties. The President's Mansion will always be fine. The Gorgas House, the oldest house built by the state of Alabama, is a house museum showing different history levels of the university. But the university has bought the Bryce Insane Asylum campus. Was another building designed by Samuel Sloan. It was the largest building in the world under one roof. It was the first moral architecture built facility where clean air, healthy water, everything for these mentally ill patients. And it was a wonderful facility. It's amazing. It really ought to be preserved. It's a Kirkbride pattern. It is the definition of an insane asylum as far as when people think of when that word pops into mind. But most of it will be torn down to build parking lots because every freshman will be allowed to have a car on campus, and they're going to need to build more things. Just off the top of my head one day, I said, well, why don't they use Bryce as the new welcome center, convention center, and hotel for the people who come in to visit the university, and then the current awful hotel can be another dormitory, and all their parking can be university, because that's right on campus. And then Bryce can be this showcase. You go down this long oak-lined, alley up to the, because there's the giant dining halls and so forth for a facility that had hundreds of patients, and that would be meeting spaces and convention spaces, which Tuscaloosa does not have. But and that's just a quick fix, obviously, And the building is built like a fortress. It will. I can assure you that the embodied energy in that building, and the cost will be so much more, and of course, the great cultural loss to tear it down to build parking lots. And of course the other thing is, and this is fairly contentious, the entire property is known, it's a cemetery. All the lawns up to it is a cemetery. Somebody lost the records. So of course they hired the ultrasound equipment to go and make sure that he said, no, there's no cemeteries there. In fact, we'll be sure by hiring the ultrasound. So they hired the University of Alabama to do the ultrasounds, and they didn't find anything. So they did core analysis of the trees. None of the trees are old enough to be saved, so it's all coming down. They're going to put up a monument in honor of the cemetery. Dr. Bryce and his wife's monument are going to be maintained, but the fact of the matter is that site should have been preserved. And again, it all goes back to funding and how would you have done it? Well, I came up with the idea right there. And I'm sure, and I'm not very clever. Somebody else could come up with a much better idea. Tuscaloosa has some preservation wins with this house, with Battle Friedman, with the Old Tavern. The Old Tavern is a stagecoach stopping in. It's where the legislature met while they were building the Capitol. And now it has been moved to Capitol Park. That's, appropriate, even though the structure had to be moved. So we've got some wins. And we have an interesting original city grid. We have a city that in less than 40 years went from a few Indian huts and log cabins to this mansion, which is a pretty incredible shift in transitions in architecture. They had portrait painters here. They had manufacturing, all sorts of things in just that brief little window, because of course the Civil War ends that. So the city has a rich, rich history. I think that Tuscaloosa needs to, and they might, take a holistic community approach. Is if you spent $10 million restoring this house and let the rest of the neighborhood fall in, you've wasted $10 million. You really have. If you spend $10 million restoring 4 blocks or investing in 4 blocks, you're going to get more out of it, and all the houses will come up together. That has been shown time and time again in different communities, but where they invested full in, there's house museums in New Orleans that they put millions in, and then they put up a 12-foot tall fence around the entire thing because the rest of the neighborhood deteriorated. And, so do you want to live in a fortress or do you want to live in a community? And I think that preservation is so much about, as they say, the tout ensemble, the all together of the community.